The key thing that I want to talk about as the central theme for all of this is, what is your branding? Like, you talk about branding, well, like, what is it literally? It's putting a brand on a cow, right?
Right. Start building your community as early as you can. Also, find a way that's not so taxing that you're not working, and build a thing and try to find the people that are going to like that thing. Hey, welcome back to Brain Arcade. How's it going, Arthur? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Chris, how are you doing? I'm great.
Good, man. Introduce yourself a little bit. I have a very set topic, and I'll tell you about it after you introduce yourself.
My name is Arthur von Nagel. I've been in the games industry for something like 15 years now. Before that, I was a semi-professional touring musician. I'll touch on that in a bit. I worked with Chris here at Genvid. I was the VP of production there. Before that, I was a senior lead producer over at Ubisoft, working on the Rocksmith educational music brand. And then before that, I was a director, a designer, writer, producer, QA, starting QA from the bottom at Telltale Games. And then, before that, for music, I was the lead singer and bassist for an indie metal, death metal band called Cormorant. And we used
Fantastic.
to tour the whole country and have a good time and do. We were one of the biggest indie metal bands around circa 2010.
That's fantastic. You know, I need to listen to your heavy metal more. But generally I'm on smooth jazz right now. So this week, well, actually, let's start out with just how are you doing? We haven't talked in a while. And you're not at Genvid anymore, and I know you're doing other stuff. But how are you just doing in general?
Oh my God, I'm fantastic.
That's great.
Well, I have a new job starting later this month, but I'm not going to talk about it because I'm not representing them in this call.
Yep.
But no, I just got back from a trip to Mexico. I was in Oaxaca.
Oh.
It's absolutely gorgeous. Oh my God.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I love the history. It's so cool. Oaxaca is like one of the few places that kind of dodged the initial attacks of the Aztec Empire. And so their culture is super different. And God, there are like people there who don't even speak Spanish. Like it's like straight up.
Ooh, that's fantastic.
That's
awesome.
It's so cool.
That's cool.
And the food is amazing. I ate so many different types of bugs.
Really?
Yeah. We always have to lead things back to food when I'm talking to you. But,
that's right. That's right. Well, I endorse the idea that we can eat insects for protein. I just don't know that I trust everybody to do it. Well, I mean, I've had like cricket chocolate chip cookies and like the modern spin on using whatever insect ingredients. So,
but people are super nice there, and oh my God, like they love video games, they love
that's
anime.
Fun.
Oh my God, like there was like huge murals of like Goku, just like on the
that's right. That's awesome. All right, I asked you on the show because a listener, actually, we did a follow-up episode where somebody asked a question based on one of the episodes and said, "Hey, could you guys dig more into this?" This is totally different. A listener wrote in. And they were like, love the show, X, Y, and Z. Can you talk about this topic? And I was like, absolutely. I sent back an email. Haven't heard back from them, but we'll see. We're going to do the topic anyway. But as soon as we got it, and I'll stop being mysterious with the topic, I thought of you because we had this discussion previously in one of our sort of talking jam sessions. Mm-hmm. And so the topic is, hey, can you talk about indie games that built a big community, started out small or, relatively small team, and then like blew up on Steam. So, the Vampire Survivor, Cult of the Lamb, the ones that have had great success. And you and I, like I said, you and I have talked about this, which is like, there's a new pattern emerging, or it's not new, but the formula for success for these is so different than build it, then market it, then they will come. To me, these games prove that old pattern of build it and they will come still valid, but there is a new way that indies can approach things. And I think it's important to talk about here in a way. So just first, what are your general thoughts on that?
I don't think there is a single formula. I think you'll see a wide range of things. Whenever you dive into any sort of indie game that does this, you do an analysis of community management for any indie game, there's like such a massive amount of different things. But I think there is one commonality, and that's it's almost like creating a sort of a cult of personality around your game and making it associated with the sense of self of the potential player. I think that's a commonality, and the way you go about doing that is completely different. But
so that's interesting. Sorry, let me dig into that a little bit. So basically what you're saying is they're building an identity for the game, or to build this cult of personality that should naturally attract the player that aligns with that. And in fact, it's almost subconscious, because what you're saying is like, that's the thing that is totally for me. I'm into it. I know it's early. I don't care. It's all my thing, as opposed to the marketing way, which is like find a bunch of like defining keywords to then try to find those people, right?
I think it's even more than it's for me. I think it is me.
Interesting. Okay, right. And it's basically a mirror reflection of my perception of self.
Yeah, because I think now we're sort of in this time where there isn't a monoculture anymore, right? Like there isn't that hearth that everyone gathers around and sees on TV, this thing. There's like a few, like I guess in America, the Super Bowl, like the last TV show I can think of that did this was Game of Thrones, but like there isn't that singular thing that everyone's like, yes, we've all watched this. Now it's about like finding the niche. And the idea of, oh yeah, this is a universal thing that's for everybody. Like that's really hard, right? That's like what, Mario,
yeah, I mean, there are a few things that can still pull it off, right? But it's probably 10 or less, right? It's like Mario, maybe Call of Duty, Fortnite, like, just the gigantic brands. And in fact, my hot take is we're actually in the middle of a retraction in the zeitgeist of consumerism across the board, from monolithic one-size-fits-all branding, right? And I think this is the expression of that. And I don't think it's because people are tired of those big brands. I think it's because they now have options or choices that they didn't have before.
There's so much out there, and so like I tend to go back to my experience doing indie music, and like those subcultures, they're really powerful identifiers of the self, right? Like even within a genre like metal music, there's like a million different subgenres of people say, no, I'm a black metal kid, I'm doom metal, I'm death metal, right? And that's like part of their sense of self and how they want to externalize their image, from like a kind of Bartesian kind of sense, right? And that's like this idea of, when there is a sort of a fervency of fanaticism that comes up, it's because your potential player is saying, this is my tribe, right? And so they will fight for you. They will be your advocate. And if you do something that breaks whatever is the rules that have been established for that fandom, you're going to hear about it.
Right. I 100% agree. You know what? Let's dig into a little bit more, but let's pick a couple products, which like I listed off a couple, like Cult of the Lamb did this, kind of did something like this. Balatro, Vampire Survivors, which kicked off Slay the Spire. I know I'm missing a couple.
Well, I mean, and then Hollow Knight is like the
Hollow Knight,
the anti-example in some ways.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. Well, so talk about that. Why is it the anti-example? Or should we define the example first and then hit the anti?
Well, I think that the idea for an indie space community building, you slowly grow it up through like your social medias or Discords, and you start sharing things slowly as you build up the product, and you start finding people who are into whatever it is you're offering. Maybe it's a lot of the times you see an indie game that's kind of cribbing from something nostalgic from someone's childhood. There's a game coming out called Mina the Hollower from the Shovel Knight devs, and that one is very clearly inspired by like Link's Awakening on the Game Boy, and then some elements of Castlevania, and it has a whole lot of like Souls-like designs to it as well. So it's like, oh, if you like those things, you like this thing, and then you build it up via their Discord. That's the kind of standard.
Yeah, I agree. And in fact, I see what you're saying with Hollow Knight though, because like it actually follows a more traditional pattern of like your first game came out and it did good but not amazing, but they started building a community around it. And so they did the community after the first like big milestone, abstractly milestone. And then like now the second one is like years later, right?
Like 7 years.
7 years, but they're still leveraging that community goodwill, right? Which I think community piece is the important part there of like they've built at least, more than a regular fan base. It's like there's actually a little bit of a community around it.
I mean, yeah, Hollow Knight offers something. It really has vibes that feel something that connects to people on a specific way. It has a certain loneliness to it,
right,
mournfulness to it that feels very profound and deep, and people just attach. And then the intermittent backlash with Silksong before its release was fascinating, but it only served to like create more hype, and they weren't actually doing much in terms of community management. They were working like, there's a small team, and they were working on their game. And then meanwhile, the fan base is taking this to like religious, mythological levels of, like Nintendo does a direct, where's Silksong? Sony does a state of play, where's Silksong?
Where's Silksong? Yeah.
Right. And so suddenly it's like becomes this like larger cultural movement around this indie game made by a handful of people.
Yeah. So this example is super wild though, is like, because somehow they ended up with advocates they didn't intentionally create.
Yeah.
And like, I wouldn't even say that they were incentivizing him at all. It was just organic community advocates for the game. And like I only bring that up because like, I actually think you can cultivate advocates for your game and I'm using advocate in the marketing sense of like somebody who will actively talk about your product or your game. But I don't think you can make them, right? Like It's artificial if you pay them, you can get endorsements, but it's like when you have a true advocate that steps up for you without like prompting, it's super powerful. And like, I wholly believe that you can maybe create the conditions for that magic to happen, but I don't think you can actually go create those, right?
It's a mix of everything. I mean, obviously your product has to be, I don't want to say necessarily good because that's a really meaningless word, but it has to be compelling to some segment. It has to mean something very powerful to some segment.
So, okay, let's take that. So it's powerful to some segment.
Yeah.
And Hollow Knight, you've already identified, has like, there's an identity that people are attaching to, which is this mournful, it's really solo. It has a down vibe. It's in a minor chord, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so essentially people are identifying with it, also identifying with the fiction and the look and everything. It's like it's a perfect sort of recipe of what it is. But let's take the conversation to Balatro.
Sure.
So Balatro is a card game, right? And so I would say that it has less to attach to from the outside. It looks like it has less to attach to in a human way. I mean, what do you think about that? I think there are attach points, but who am I if I'm playing Balatro, right?
Who am I if I'm playing Balatro? I mean, Balatro also has a unique vibe to it, right?
It does.
It's almost psychedelic. It really kind of brings you into this almost like you're on mushrooms kind of state when you're playing that.
It's like you're in Vegas on mushrooms. So it's fear and loathing, the card game. So what's interesting about Balatro though is like I would sum that up as like it's mystical gambling.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because there's not a lot of characters, but they imply a lot of mystery, right? So like there's bosses. I never see the bosses.
They don't personify them.
No, but they're represented by how they're messing with you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the mechanic of like, oh, all spades are no points, right? Or like two of a kind means nothing in this hand kind of a thing. And like, so that it's really mechanically driven. That game is super interesting because the guy who made it wasn't a traditional game dev at all.
No. And he never shows up on camera or anything like that, which is awesome. Like it's the anonymity adds to the allure, I think.
Yeah. He's like Deadmau5, right? Like he's just like, you don't know who's under the mask. It's really fun. And I applaud his anonymous approach to things. Cause like at that one award show, like he sent up like a surrogate, right? Like, like somebody went to go accept the award and then basically talk smack. And I was like, it's so punk rock.
Yeah.
I was so into it. I'm like, I don't know, like my hero. But from an attachment standpoint, it's interesting because the first time I played it, and as jaded as I am, I instantly understood the mechanics. I played lots of poker games. I played lots of puzzle games and stuff like that. And it wasn't until I got 2 or 3 hands in where I said, oh, I'm hooked, because it's actually not poker. And it's actually not it's not gambling outside this. It's not traditional gambling. Outside the sense of like there are consequences and there are disproportionate rewards, but there's nothing really at stake because you can just start over again, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, it's a safe simulator for how can I break these rules?
Absolutely. And I think, somewhere somebody's probably making an argument that it's a gateway drug or it's a gateway game to understanding poker. But
I mean, some countries in Europe thought that, and they, gave it an M rating or whatever it was. They because they said it was gambling, but it's not about gambling.
It's not about gambling. Yeah. Like the game mechanics. They're gambling-esque. Right. But anyway, so do you know anything about their journey?
Let's see. So I know it was a solo dev who was kind of making a bunch of various games on the side, and he sent an early build of Balatro to a friend, and the friend basically told him, "Hey, dude, I've been playing this for 20 hours straight." And then he realized, oh, maybe I have something here.
Maybe I have a thing, right?
Right, and then he really focused on that project, and it kind of came out of go ahead.
Well, no, like it even went through 2 or 3 evolutions of that, where he was trying to make one thing, showed it to a friend, made some adjustments, like went a little bit wider, made more adjustments, and then like the context and the flavor came. But he was solving questions like, I don't have an artist, or like I don't have, he was solving the limitations of his design. Yeah. But to me, it shows that you can do a lot with a little.
You absolutely.
And what was really interesting about that game, and I think what made it super viral, is that literally anybody can play it. And I think that's like talking about imprinting, or like, this game is me. I think this is an interesting example where it was kind of empty vessel, right? Because it's first person technically. Yeah. And so like it left room for you to play it how you want to play it. Because when I play it, I can guarantee I play it totally differently than you.
I would guess, yeah.
Right. And so, and there are rules to go by and some puzzles to solve, but it's generally like, it's just mysterious enough to hook you in. Like, oh, what is this? Like, all the planet cards and like tarot, and like there's a mysticism to it, and there's a soundscape that sucks you in. Mm-hmm. But it all kind of keeps you there in this sort of subliminal mystery space.
But it's also grounded in the sense that I think most people played solitaire on their Windows computer, and superficially, if you take away the creepy music and the really out there kind of art for the jokers, I mean, it superficially looks like solitaire, and then the cards go up in flames.
Right, it's familiar but different. Right, it has just enough different to keep that mystery piece going. But and of course, banana. But
of course, banana,
and of course, banana,
which has showed up in other card games now. I saw it's in Monster Train 2. They had it a whole event with the Cavendish.
We are, as an industry, we are copycats. So
we are copycats, but it also kind of speaks to the mimetic obsession that we have now, which is permeating everything. And you brought up Vampire Survivors earlier. Like that was one of their key things that they really embraced when they were doing their community management, was, okay, what are the memes that people have about these different characters and items and stuff?
Right. So actually, that's a great segue. The segue note is like, everybody's copying the banana, kind of like everybody copied hats from TF2 for a while. Like people see a success thing, they'll jump onto it and they'll try to reference off of it and draft off that stream and stuff. Is sometimes successful, sometimes not. But they'll flood the zone and then ruin the magic and then whatever. But the other thing of Vampire Survivors, it's actually a little bit different than both of our previous examples, in that the guy who made Vampire Survivors actively cultivated a community, right? Mm-hmm. Early on. In fact, he had a super large, successful community and game before he even came out of early access on Steam. Right. Absolutely. And so, and his story was interesting because he even built it in, I forgot how he built it, but he built it in some arcane, he built it like an old web game. Mm-hmm. Right. That's and then he had to hire people to port it.
Yeah.
Right. Because didn't he build it in like PHP and like something else first?
Yeah, it was like web based. That was their initial little demo. And, I mean, I think they put it out. What was it? I want to say in December, and then the following, and there was like maybe a handful of people playing it, and then some streamer picked it up, and they suddenly their concurrent player count went to like 50,000.
It's amazing.
And it was just, and for the community side, it was just him, and then he hired this very nice, I think, British lady who basically just, it was like her first game job. Right. So she's like, okay, I'm scrambling.
Trial by fire.
Yeah.
That's the whole industry. So wait, so talk about her a little bit. So she came in. I don't know this part of the story.
He just kind of brought her on. I don't know her. I think her background was like in business or something. She never really done games. I don't know how they met. But the guy who created Vampire Survivors was like out of both. He's Italian, but I guess he was living in England at the time. Okay. And he's like, I need help with community management, and she kind of took it on.
Yeah. That's amazing.
So she had to take on their Discord, their Twitter or X or whatever it's called.
Yeah,
and their
Steam
TikTok
stuff, right?
And all the Steam stuff. And she's like, okay, I'm going to learn on the fly, and that's awesome. Like I love that. I think it's so cool. I think people, I don't want to say experience is necessarily overstated, but like people can get by, especially nowadays, with just a lot of gumption.
Yeah. Well, also so many tools are built to be easy that like, I almost think the intention, here's my other, like, this is a crisscrossism. Like the difference between somebody who does that kind of community management for a living and this lady is that they have KPIs they want to hit, and it's become like a repeatable job.
Right.
And I'm not saying that they're passionless. I'm just saying that their viewpoint on the job has become, I wouldn't say mechanical, that's a little too strong, but their goals are almost predefined. Whereas for her, winging it, she knows that like, I have to make the vibe and the intent strong, regardless of my ability to use the tools, right?
Well, sometimes not knowing what is proper is the best thing because it feels authentic, right? It feels in tune with your audience because you were kind of learning and growing with them, as opposed to here's this huge corporation that has this checklist of these KPIs and these metrics and this strategic plan that goes through XYZ.
We need 100,000 people in the funnel.
Yeah, and like you said, those people executing on that, I've been in there. I worked at Ubisoft, and those people are not passionless. Like everybody cares. It's just that there's a huge system in place to make that mechanism work because there's so many people, and there's so much risk involved, and so much like legal risk, and so it has to have this huge checklist.
Well, there's also a bunch of layers of decision before it even gets to community management.
Yeah.
Right. And in fact, a lot of times community managers run into this like a similar problem as QA does, which is like they're sometimes presenting contradictory information that needs to be sifted, sorted, and weighed and possibly actioned on. And sometimes that has to fight upstream versus the KPIs that you already have. Right.
Yeah. And there's this kind of paradox, right? Because they're terrified. I think a lot of community managers are terrified of saying the wrong thing that misaligns with whatever corporate wants as the talking points. But because of that fear, it kind of keeps them from hitting that next layer of connectivity with the it's I understand why those guardrails are in place, because saying the wrong thing can blow up in a catastrophic way, but it also paradoxically kind of keeps the game from connecting emotionally. We're going to quickly talk about
Go for it.
We were talking about Hollow Knight before.
Yeah. Back to Hollow Knight.
So Silk Song came out, and apparently it's really good. I haven't played it yet, but
me either.
I'm currently playing Prince of Persia, the Metroidvania. It's like a Lost Crown or something. It's a Metroidvania that came out a couple years ago. It's a masterpiece. Like it is truly one of the best Metroidvanias like ever made. Like it is up there with Symphony of the Night and Super Metroid. It is up there. Maybe that's blasphemous to say. I think I would wager it's probably as good in a lot of ways as Silk Song. It has a tremendous budget.
Yeah.
Combat's incredible. Everything's incredible.
They just released a roguelike too.
Yeah. I'm not talking about that one. That's the one that's by the Dead Cells people. No, I'm talking about the one that came out a couple years ago. Lost Crown, I think it's called. It's incredible. I highly recommend it. But it just, because it came out of Ubisoft, and there's a sort of a horn effect, right? Like Halo and horn effect. So it's like, there's this narrative against large corporations, which I totally understand. And we saw that play out with Expedition 33 as well recently, right? The story was, oh, they're ex-Ubisoft devs. A handful of them were Ubisoft. But it's fine. It plays into a larger story. I understand. But man, that Prince of Persia Metroidvania, masterpiece.
Okay.
But it did not hit the zeitgeist because it's hard to kind of build that connection when people don't want to associate with, oh, my brand is not Ubisoft.
So, you know what? I'm going to come at it from a slightly different angle because I don't disagree. I agree with you. I'm going to just throw another factor of resistance in there.
Yeah.
So, I've run into this personally, where like being an only child, I wasn't in the habit of asking for help. Right.
Yeah.
But I also wasn't getting offered a lot of help, and part of that is because I present as self-sufficient.
Sure.
Right. And so to me, Prince of Persia by Ubisoft presents as self-sufficient. So they're not creating organic advocates.
Yeah.
Right. So essentially nobody is sticking up for them because they're already the big kid on the block, even though as an individual product within the larger umbrella, this is the black sheep outcast, right? Or like it's this quote unquote small product, which doesn't get a lot of support.
Yes.
And so they could have used more support and some organic advocates, but unless they asked for it or actively tried to create a community, they're not going to get it.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to call it, and we need to put a name on this, Arthur. What's this psychological symptom of like self-sufficient brother syndrome or something? Like you just don't help them, right? Like you don't help your older brother out, or you don't volunteer it because you expect them to be able to handle it themselves.
Oh, I
right?
see.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's totally makes sense. But when you think about it in the context of within Ubisoft, it's a small team, right? That probably didn't have a huge budget.
Right.
But nobody sees that because it's all under the banner, the branding, Ubisoft. Right. And that's the key thing that I want to talk about as the central theme for all of this is what is your branding?
Right.
You know, how do you talk about branding? Well, like, what is it literally? It's putting a brand on the cow, right? Like,
right. Yeah.
And people want to have these things that say, this is my identity, and they want to be able to share that with other folks.
Right.
Finish training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least that was the plan. Except now the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
Let's actually talk about branding because this is important. Like small teams, 1, 3 people, 6 people, something like that. Because that's really what we're talking about. All of these indie darlings are small teams, right? And like the brand is their game, right? Like it's integral to what they're building, and it's not like a game by Microsoft, right? Where it has this umbrella brand. And so I think there's the pros and cons of that is like they start out unknown, which means they're approachable, which is a pro. They're unknown, which is a con, right? Brand is still a little bit malleable. It's like this is actually a great place. I want you to segue into your band because what I'm kind of talking about here is like at these early growth stages, it's easy. It's so easy because the brand is not set, right? And if I play a Balatro 2, I'll probably be a little bit not upset, but I'll be let down because I think that guy should go on and make more stuff, right? Like his brand should be punk rock. Fuck you, right?
Yeah.
Like,
so he should be like Banksy or something.
Yeah, exactly. And just make the next like quirky weirdness. Well, actually, a negative version of viral hit is Flappy Bird. And by negative, I mean negative effects on that dev, because that dev basically melted down.
But before I segue to my band and how I built that up, there is a dark side to this narrative of it's a small team because now all these mega corporations are seeing, oh, small team, small budget, made huge hit,
right?
Lay everybody off, right?
Yes, yeah.
Because why do you need XYZ people to?
If we could just build, just copy the thing, right?
Just copy the thing. And so I think there was a dangerous narrative around, but this was really prevalent when like Clair Obscur Expedition 33 was blowing up, right? There was this number that kept getting passed around. Only 30 people made this.
Right.
And, it's all ex-UB devs. But when I always look at the credits of every game I play because I have producer brain and I have to know like how they structured their team. There are hundreds of names in that list.
Right.
And I'm not putting down the thing at all. It's amazing. It's what they put together is phenomenal, incredible, great, good on them.
Right. The core dev team may have been 30, but they were like an iceberg. Like they had hundreds of people supporting them.
We have to be realistic about the amount of people that are putting their hands into these projects.
Yeah, 100%.
And so there's a sort of like a romanticization of the lone dev, Stardew Valleys,
yeah, totally.
It's a beautiful story, but it's also a little dangerous.
I think the segue to that is like, okay, let's talk about, there's no formula, but there are common elements, right? Mm-hmm. But before we get there, talking about the pros and cons of small teams, et cetera, and like the perception of success. And I use this when I talk to students, when I taught game design class, was like, everybody tells you about what a hit Angry Birds were, but they don't tell you that there were 51 failures in front of it.
Of course.
Right?
And
because
that's everything.
For these indie, to me, the shift in the story for these, smaller indie games, including, I'm using small just by like, relative scale, is the story that is being told about the brand before it comes out is just as important, but it does shift because once it gets popular, there are negatives that potentially come with that, right? Like the teams can get overwhelmed. They're ill-equipped to actually handle the larger than the tight audience they've already built, right? The amount of scrutiny, the perception that you went from little brother to big brother, that now you are self-sufficient gets added,
the
right?
sellout concept that
or like, so now you're rich,
right?
Now you're rich, you should be able to do this, add this feature because we demand it, right? And so there are things that come with that. So managing that transition, I think, is something that indie devs need to pay attention to. Is like, watch out what you wish for. Like if you blow up, you have to be ready. Actually, I'm not going to say that. You don't have to be ready for the blow up. Just know that if it happens, you will have to shift your operational strategy. Although the Vampire Survivor guy, actually, he just turned it around and just kind of hired some more devs to help him.
He did. He has a team of like a dozen people now or something. Yeah,
it's like 12, but it's still relatively small.
I think that's the key, right? You do have to scale to some degree.
Yeah.
But if you don't overextend, like, sadly what Telltale did was, oh my God, we have The Walking Dead. It's selling millions and millions of copies. It's saving the company. It's everything. Let's just scale up times 3, times 4.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work that way. No. If you scale up slowly, like Slay the Spire 2 just announced that they delayed their project from the end of the year till like March 2026 is what they said. And honestly, like that was really well received because they were just like, here's what we want to do. Here's why we're doing this. It's like we have all these cool features that we're excited about, and they're still a pretty small team. Like it's more than just the 2 guys.
Right.
But it's still like within like 10, I don't know the exact number, but I'm guessing like 10 people.
I would say though that to me, the context and the transparency is probably important, right? Because they are still perceived as kind of small and feeling connected to them.
They are kind of small. I mean, they're like funding indie games and they're multimillionaires at this point. Good on them. Congratulations. That's incredible. But yeah, they still send out, a newsletter every single month, right?
Yeah.
When they still have their early access that they're working towards for that March 2026. And when they do that, they're going to have like conversations with their community about bugs, about feel. And that was really foundational to exactly your point of the brand feels like it's hearing me, it's listening to me, it cares, it wants the best experience.
There's a person here. It's not, this is a combination of 3 colors that is pleasing to people, shaped into a thing that's semi-generic that people will attach to like a big company. All right. So let's talk about that. Like, because I've said this to you, and I've probably said it on a show. My eventual retirement future is solo dev with help, of course, but I'm going to try and make art. So I'm going to make some crazy stuff. Actually, you know about one of my projects that I've started. By the way, that's stalled just because, pay the bills.
Of course.
So it's part of why I'm super excited about this. And this journey is like, I've realized that I do need to ask for help. I'm not going to go off into a corner and build a bunch of stuff and just release it in obscurity. And so like, how do we start building towards this idea that there's community involved? Right? Like a community ecosystem around these games. Because, I think studying this and talking about it is going to be helpful for indie devs worldwide. Right? So anyway, I don't have a pattern yet, except the sort of general, like obvious ones of start building your community as early as you can. Also find a way that's not so taxing that you're not working, but create true interaction with that community and build a thing, and try to find the people that are going to like that thing. Like there's a give and take, because you want to take community feedback, but you don't want to just make whatever they tell you, right? So
no, that's right. You have to, you have to understand the why behind their node, right?
Totally. So with that in mind, you had a successful community growth with your band. Tell me about how you did that.
Okay, so this was circa 2008, 2009, 2010. So the tools and the environment are very different now, 15 years later. But I think some of the commonality, there are a lot of commonalities just from a psychological standpoint. Okay, so my band was weird. So it's this death metal band called Cormorant. And the concept behind the band was I grew up listening to a lot of like Bob Dylan and like Lou Reed and Woody Guthrie and kind of folk, Simon Garfunkel folk music.
Yeah.
Right. Like my favorite song growing up was like Hurricane by Bob Dylan, because I loved the kind of journalistic aspect of it and like the real world implications of it. And then in my teens, I started getting into extreme forms of heavy metal. I love the instrumentation. I love the breadth of emotion to it. But I wanted to marry it with lyrics that were meaningful, that had a lot of research and depth and thought and history to them. And so I hooked up with this incredible group of guys, like two phenomenal guitarists, Nick Cohen and Matt Solis, an amazing drummer, Brendan Kunkel. And we put together this band that was, okay, take the sound of, I'm just going to throw out some names, but like bands like Opeth and Enslaved, who are some of the bigger, more like progressive, extreme black and death metal bands, and let's marry that to the storytelling of a folk band. And the thought was, there are a lot of people that want to like the auditory aesthetics of heavy metal music,
right,
but wanted a little bit more to it from a messaging standpoint. And the other bet that we made is that the press would also be into that, because of storytelling is journalistic, right? And so that was the core concept of it. And so that speaks to what I said earlier about, okay, you have to make something that's not necessarily good. I mean, there are people who dislike my music, it doesn't matter. It's something that is compelling to some segment of the marketplace that you feel is not served. And there just wasn't a lot of that, right? There were some bands in the underground. Our contemporaries were this band Ludacra, which I have a tremendous amount of respect for. In the big sense, there's like Iron Maiden that does a big, history songs. But there wasn't a lot out there with that kind of angle and that sort of instrumentation that was really fluid, that didn't define itself into a particular genre, and had elements of like a folk background or jazz breakdown or something in the song. And so that was the product. And then what we did from a community strategy standpoint is, so this was, again, 2008, 2009. This was MySpace time. This was early Facebook time. Of course, now that I would not recommend those platforms for your game strategy circa 2025, 2026.
Maybe MySpace again.
Maybe MySpace again. But
it still exists.
I actually spent hours on top of, working on with the band on the music, adding people one by one by one on MySpace and sending them the demos and putting out demos, and not only putting out music demos, but also writing articles and putting out like early memes, things that are funny, reviews of other bands, and giving them not just content that was giving them things to enjoy that wasn't just the music. It was kind of creating this idea that was sort of, the tone was like funny, but also like a little high-minded.
Sure.
And so there was a sort of, people would really engage with the writing in those posts that I would put up on MySpace and Facebook. And it started getting people really excited, not just for the music, but being a part of this like idea. I almost was running like a zine in a sense, talking about the larger culture around music at the time.
Right. It's interesting. You're kind of almost describing, it's almost like anti-virality.
Sure.
Right. Like, but it was also like pre-viral days a little bit. So like, you know, but the fun thing that makes things viral is word of mouth. And so you were still doing something that would potentially be like, people only think of viral as like, oh, it blew up. But the things that do that are a lot of what you're doing, which is you're creating personal connections, some humor, or like personality connections, right? And like that's interesting.
And it wasn't even just social media. God, this really dates the time period, but I was an active poster on game FAQs.
Wow. Okay.
Remember game FAQs?
Yeah.
And there's a heavy metal board on game FAQs called 235 was the metal board, and I ended up they're like in the credits of the album.
So you did early crossover marketing.
I did early crossover marketing through message boards and social media, and so here's how it kind of culminated is, you know, we were a bunch of dumb kids and we didn't have any money. So we actually cultivated a little bit of this mystique because we started getting a few like record label nibbles. And I did something that in retrospect is incredibly stupid, but it worked at the time. I wrote, so I got connected to this website that was one of the bigger metal website outlets at the time. Maybe it still is. I don't know. It's called Metal Sucks. And so they gave me like a guest slot to write some articles. I did the legally questionable thing of posting one of the record label contracts that we had received.
Oh, wow.
And I omitted all the names so that nobody could like trace it to what label it was. And I just like eviscerated the contract. And for like many people read that article. It was called Anatomy of a Record Label. And it went kind of viral, like got hundreds of comments in the thing. It was like one of the top performing posts that they had. It was basically just like, here is all the reasons why you should not sign a contract. And it was informative, but it also was sort of like
it was like a two-bird salute to like the industry, right?
Exactly. And so it made the band like, oh, who are these people who are like flipping off this record label? And it's sort of like an us and them kind of, again, that idea of creating a tribe. So that was part of it. And then, of course, you know, all the posters from Game FAQs just like brigaded on the post, and it became really, they were really supportive, and they were just like fan out into all the different social media and message boards that they were going in. And where that culminated into, again, this is pre-Kickstarter. Kickstarter didn't exist. And we decided, again, because we didn't have any money, okay, we're going to basically solicit pre-orders before it's live. And what we did at the time was we said, oh, okay, we're going to put your name in the liner notes because we hadn't printed the CDs yet and the vinyls yet. And people were like, what is this? Because again, this is 2009, 2010. This wasn't a thing.
Oh my God, I could be in the liner notes?
Yeah, exactly. And like, you can say whatever you want. And there's like these different tiers, again, pre-Kickstarter. And we did this via PayPal of all things. And we raised like $30,000 in one day for this weird extreme metal band. And it was and again, this was like not too far removed from 9/11. PayPal actually shut us down because they thought we were laundering. They thought we were laundering money to a terrorist organization. And of course, I had to send them like all my passports and paperwork and socials and proof. No, this is a band that we're doing crowdfunding. They're like, what is that? Why would people buy something before the product is available to buy? I'm like, no, well, the promise is that they're buying an experience. They're buying,
it's a pre-order.
They're getting exclusive T-shirts and
it's
whatever.
It's funny
else.
You had to explain that back then because you don't even have to explain it now, right?
I guess like now it's the norm, but it wasn't that back then. So that's, I don't know if those tools, like explaining all the way I did it is helpful from it's not from a tool standpoint, because now the world has completely changed like 15 years later from like this is now there's like oversaturation in Kickstarter, but at the time there wasn't really anything like it. And I think the core idea is, what is the story that you are telling that is making people feel like they are attaching themselves to? And we would play into it, right? Like this record here, Dwelling. So this was, we got an incredible PR person. Her name is Kim Kelly. That we never got a label. We just used this publicist, Kim, who's a great writer actually. And she connected us to like NPR, and this was NPR's Metal Album of the Year, because we were, I wrote a song that was based on a story that was aired on NPR.
Oh,
and I connected them to that. They did an interview about that, and then there were all kinds of things, fun. Right? We said stuff like, yeah, we recorded this completely analog, which we did, and it's a huge amount of work, and it cost a bunch of time and money to do it, but that was part of the story,
Two questions, because I just start wrapping this up a little bit. So, one, did your liner notes like blow up in size? Did you end up having to like spend a bunch of money on it, or like, you know what I mean? Like, did it become a booklet basically?
There are hundreds and hundreds of names in these liner notes.
That is fantastic.
Oh
my God, look at that font size.
Yeah, we just had to kind of crunch the font size down.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's so cool. Wait, did you ever make it to retail?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It got into retail. It's on Spotify, Apple, the whole thing.
So my only piece of hindsight advice would have been heavier paper stock for the liner notes when you go to retail to make your package feel heavier.
Oh, interesting.
Right. So here's the connection. Back in the day, Blizzard used to use notepads.
Oh.
You used to get your free notepad, but that notepad was there to make the box heavier.
Oh, interesting.
So it wasn't just community goodwill, like, oh, you're playing something that might need some notes.
Yeah.
It was actually a hefty pad to make the box feel more valuable when you pick it up on the shelf.
Oh, interesting. We did get some retail distribution, but they take a large cut. And so because we were young and hungry and stupid, I had this huge operation out of my garage where we would just get together and ship, dozens and dozens of albums every single day. And we would sign them, every single one. We would sign them.
Okay.
Right.
That's
and we would put a sticker and add a little note. And so that kind of keeps that feeling of
and this brings me back to my last thing that I think we just close out on. You were still taking care of the community.
Yes.
Right. And that informed every decision that you were making, which included like when you ship it out. Because like, to me, that's one of those things that I don't think anybody would have missed it if you didn't do it. But because you did do it, it was appreciated.
Well, yeah, and then they took a photo and shared it on their socials and said, "Look, this band actually sent me a personal note." And it took us 10 minutes, or whatnot. I mean, 10 seconds per thing, but it makes all the difference for somebody's attachment to the thing they're putting out, the art.
Literal, you got paid for your calories. So, okay, we have so much more to talk about, but I think that's a great first general shot at this idea of indie community building. I think what was the other topic that I covered? The idea of brands, right? I want you to come back if you want, and let's talk about brand building, like from the lens of an indie perspective. What's a brand? How does it work? How can I actually cultivate my own? I think we should. I think we can totally do that. So
sure.
Awesome. Do you have any other last words or comments or anything you want to plug or?
No, nothing to plug. I just, it's great seeing you, man.
It's good seeing you too.
Working with you. You're awesome.
I do too. You're awesome too. I miss this discussion, and I'm glad now I have a way to capture these on video, because part of the reason I started this podcast was some of our discussions was like, man, there was some really great stuff we talked about, and it's like lost to the ether, right? It's only in two brains now, and so I'd love to share this stuff. So
you're doing a good service for folks.
I hope so.
Hope people watch your stuff.
Anyway, I think the guy's name is Mike. Mike, I hope this episode covered some of what you're asking about. So anyway, awesome. Arthur, thank you for coming on. I've always loved talking to you. I definitely want you to come back and let's talk about brands.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Love talking to you, man.
Thanks, dude. Brain Arcade is a Princess Hermit production, produced by Kyrene Kim, music and mixing by Jonathan Ontiveros. The podcast is hosted by me, Chris Cross. You can find me and my other endeavors at coffeeacross.com.
Every minute your finance team spends wrestling with data is a minute lost. Insight Software's AI-powered insights instantly move you from complexity to clarity. Automated analysis, real-time reporting, strategic recommendations, all at your fingertips. Transform how your finance team works and watch your business grow. Stop wasting time. Start making smarter decisions. Learn more at insightsoftware.com/AI.
Hey everybody, Diego here from the Candle Power Hour and Candle Power Records. Together with Electrocast Records, we proudly present Imperial Highway, a California sampler. 15 singles tracked by artists all based in California. Every song on Imperial Highway is mastered to deliver. Rock and roll is back, and we got what you want. If you're craving new music, Imperial Highway hits the spot. Download Imperial Highway. Check us out at candlepowerrecords.com and listen to the Candle Power Hour on Electrocast.